Assalamu alaikum, sir.
What are you doing?
It's a Porsche, sir?
Yeah, it's Porsche.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry, my baby.
What is that?
Salam.
This is what? This is Porsche, huh?
Yes, Porsche.
Sir, good car.
Very nice.
And
I need to do an upgrade on my baby.
this is what? Brake? Yeah, brake. This I know.
Yeah,
I know very well this one.
Perfect.
I can install it, sir.
Yeah, I need big upgrade. Track. I'm ready for track.
Yeah, I have torque wrench. I can. Like everything.
Torque wrench?
It'll be perfect, sir.
Wallah,
Sir?
I'm ready.
Thank you, sir. Wallah. Thank you.
Shukran. What's going on, Motorhead fans? Welcome back to the YouTube channel, Instagram, whatever this is going to be on. Behind us, we have a 2015 911 Turbo. This customer loves tracking his Porsche, as any Porsche owner should. You buy a Porsche, you should track it. But, of course, you're going to come with some upgrades that should be done, especially for tracking the vehicle. We have removed the front rotor here, and you can see that from factory, Porsche loves to drill. So it's a drilled rotor, which is really not beneficial for track. As you can see, you have a lot of cracking that will happen to your rotor. The same thing with factory pads. They really can't withstand the heat of aggressive track driving, as this customer likes to do. So this vehicle already has some engine tuning, some other engine performance, but now we're going to be stopping the vehicle. And we're going to be doing that with a Grego disc made in the USA, two-piece floating, slotted rotor. Extremely beneficial, great for cooling, especially on the track. It's going to really add it, and it's also lighter than the factory piece. But to match with the Grego discs, we're going to be adding Ferrado brake pads. This is also going to be a great package for this vehicle. Combination to really stop the car, keep it efficient, not having any heat warp or any of that issues that you have when you're tracking the vehicle. So stick around, we're going to get this installed and make it happen. And of course, everything is going to be done well. And Jojo for the English explanation, let's go.
So خلينا على العربي. السلام عليكم، معكم مجهود يحيى من موتور هيد جراج. عندنا البورش 911 2015 911 توربو، إذا 911 توربو مع التوربو. فالسيارة قوية على مبرمجة عليها شباك أعتقد. فصاحبها يسوقها في الحلبات كثير هذه السيارة. شو الأضرار اللي تسبب لها من سواقة الحلبات؟ لأن بريكات تضغط بريكات كثير على سرعات عالية فيرفع حرارة النظام كثير. عندنا البريك ديسك اللي هو الدرامات حق النظام البريك حق الوكالة. هذا هو طبعا الوكالة يجيك محفر يسمونه دريلد فيه هولز. هذول يكونوا فيهم مشرخين، شوفوهم مشرخين كامل. نوعا ما في بعض السيارات اللي يسوقونها الناس سيارات سبورت عادية ما بتحصلهم مشرخين، ولكن هذه مشرخة ليش؟ لأنها يعرضها لحرارة عالية في الحلبات. فهذول مش حق حلبات، مش حق هيفي ديوتي. هذول المفتحات طبعا تحصلون في البورش، في الفراري، في سيارات كثيرة، ولكن ما يتحملون الحرارات العالية أو الضغط العالي. فعندنا الابجريد. الدرام هذا مخطط. طبعا الدرام لما يكون فلات ويتحمل ضغط عالي، يتحمل بريكنج عالي، ويتحمل حرارة عالية. طبعا الخطوط هذه طبعا ينظفون السفايف اللي هي موجودة هنا من فرودو ريسنج برفورمانس. فهذه نايس ابجريد، بيكونون افضل من حق الوكالة. حق الوكالة فيهم مشرخين، سوري ارويكم هنا، بعد ما يتحملوا الحرارة عالية، صار صابهم شروخ. فهذا ابجريد ممتاز جدا حق الاربع تواير كامل قدام وورا. بنبلش فيهم. معنا التورك رنش علشان نكون دقيقين، اهم جدا. فنشوفكم بعد شويه تفاصيل تطبيق. تمام، وبسم الله.
Alright guys, as you can see, we've removed all the rust and corrosion from the old, where the old rotor was sitting. This is highly recommended, especially when you're going to be adding an aftermarket floating rotor. You really want to make sure that the hub sits flush and tight up against the face. So if you have any sort of corrosion or rust buildup, you want to make sure that you're going to clean it off super nice and smooth, just so that the new rotor has something nice flat. The other thing to keep in mind is line up your rotor screws, basically the ones that hold the rotor in place. So we have the two here we've already removed from the original one. So line everything up, go ahead and set it in place, and there we are.
جاهزين. فكينا كل البريك بادز اللي هي الدرامات فايف، فكينا كلهم الهب، نظفنا الهب كان وسخ. إيران بيحط لكم الصورة قبل في مكان مصدي، لازم يتنظف كامل لأن الدرام يلزق هنا يمسك مرات، فلما نفكه لازم ننظفه عشان نرجع كل شيء يكون نظيف مرتب. الدرام هذا الأفتر ماركت يحتاج له يكون موزون في التركيب، لازم يكون بيرفكت موزون تمام، فلازم نحرص على أن يكون الدنيا نظيفة وموزون بيرفكتلي. فنظفته بهذا الأداة، هواء مضغوط وبرش مثل برش، كل شيء تمام جاهز. فنكمل.
We just finished installing the rotor, the caliper. We installed the set screws that hold the rotor in place. These get tightened to about 9 foot-pounds. And then the caliper as well. These are very important that you don't over-tighten them. And as well as the caliper bolts that hold it in place. They're about 63 foot-pounds, which I think is about 85 Newton meters. So we're going to go ahead and tighten them. What I like to do is start at the top, tighten it a bit, go down to the bottom, kind of work it in stages until you get a nice, go up, a little bit more, a little click, boom, head back down to the bottom, go, boom, done, click. Now this caliper is all set. There really isn't a lot of force that holds the caliper in place. A lot of it is more just the gripping on the rotor itself. So this is plenty, especially because it's aluminum, going into an aluminum hub hat. So you really don't want to be over tightening it where you're going to potentially strip it out and cause more issues later on. Stick around.
ده صديقي ركبنا الدرام والبريك كاليبر، فالحين وقت شد البراغي، وقت تركيب البراغي، شد البراغي نحتاج نشدهم الى مواصفات معينه منصوحه من الشركه الصانعه. فحصلنا نحن نسوي سيرش، عندنا المعلومات المفيده، المعلومات اللازمه حق نسبه شد تورك تبع شد البرغي، لازم كل برغي له نوع شد. فالبريك كاليبر يشدون على تقريبا 85 نيوتن متر تورك، هذا التورك رنش هذا نعايره من هنا نضبطه على 85 نيوتن متر. فلما شد البرغي تتم شده من يقول تك معناته وصل 85 نيوتن متر في الشد، فهذا كفايه. حتى براغي البريك، براغي التاير نفس الشيء بيكون له شد معين غير رقم هذا رقم ثاني، فبنشده على التورك سبيكس يسمونه على المواصفات، وكذا بنكون نوعا ما خلاص جاهزين.
Alright guys, so as you can see everything is buttoned up, tightened the spec, cleaned off the hub spacer here. With German cars and other cars that have lug studs like this, where the stud actually holds the wheel into the hub, it's always good practice to clean the threads before you put them back on. So just use a wire wheel or a wire brush to clean the threads. Especially these, if they break, it's quite a pain to get them off later on, where a stud you can sometimes rethread them, pop them out. The other thing that I personally like to do, especially on cone lug studs similar to this, is applying a little bit of anti-seize or a light lubricant on the acorn head itself, just so that when you're tightening it, it's not it's called like galling up basically, where the aluminum is almost shearing along with on the rim. So just adding a little lubricant here will just give you a good torque spec when you go to tighten your lug nuts, especially for track purposes, taking them on and off a bunch of times. You want to make sure the threads are clean. Add a little bit of lubricant It's going to make sure that your wheel is nice and secure to the car.
ممتاز. هذه البراغي مش نفس سياراتنا الامريكيه او اليابانيه، تكون في عندك زي الستاد وعندك صامول اللي يسمونه صاموله ولا برغي يشد عليه. هذا لا، هذا الهوب في له ثريد وفي بولت بوب شد عليه. فنحن وين نهايه البرغي فيه زاويه نحط فيه له زي اي نوع من انواع السوائل اللي هي زيتيه، جريز ما جريز، هذه انتي سايز جريز. فحاطينها نحن عشان لما تشده ما يمسك البرغي، ما يمسك في الرنج الالومنيوم هذا معدنه اقوى من الالومنيوم فما يمسك فيه. فعلشان يكون تشده لين يتم يدور معاك ممتاز لين ما يوصل للتورك سبيك، فللضغط معين شده معينه. فهذا بيكون سيفتي على اساس ما تخرب برغي، لان اذا خرب برغي ترى ينكسر عليك، صعب جدا تفكه من الهوب. ف زيت بنركب كل شيء الحين.
So we're now starting on the rear brakes. We loosened the lug studs on the other side, but we just wanted to take a video because the rear was definitely tightened over spec, and the crowns of the lug nuts were also not really greased. And you'll notice here the sound and the force that's needed to crack these loose. These are way over tight, so we will definitely be inspecting these to make sure that everything is good. Yep. Alright guys, as you saw in the previous video, the effort that we had to put in to take these lug nuts out. As you can see, we got them all out. None of them broke, but you can definitely see the corrosion and the rust that's built up over these. Maybe they weren't cleaned before they installed them. We don't know. It's our first time getting into this. But we will be cleaning them and putting them back in. As you can see, good as new. It's not magic. Take some little elbow grease. So we ended up wire brushing this on the wheel, cleaned them all up, cleaned all the old gunk, rust off, as well as the thread face on the hubs. We also cleaned those up to make sure that these have a good mounting surface. The other thing before installation is applied a little bit of grease and anti-seize because these are split acorn. So I applied a little bit on the face as well as the curved acorn itself that will be mating to the wheel itself. So we'll have lubrication on the stud itself as well as the little lock ring. Stick around. About finished with the rear.
ممتاز، الحمد لله خلصنا السيارة، ركبنا كل البريكات، ركبنا العجلات، كل البراغي مشدودة بالتورك المطلوب، حطينا كل شيء تمام. الحين بس بيفضلنا بس خلصنا كل شيء، نزلنا السيارة، بيفضلنا بس نعبي البريك، نحن نسميه تعبئة بريك، نعبي البريك اللي هو نقعد نضغط، نطلع شوية على الشارع، نضرب تست فيه، نضرب بريك قوي جدا على اساس ان البريك سفايف والدرام عرفت ياخذون مكانهم عدل. كذا انتهينا، نشوفكم مرة جاية. عندكم اي استفسار اي اسئلة نحن حاضرين. خلي الاندنج عندك بس.
So, Joe just said in Arabic, for you English folks, we finished installing the rotors, the pads, everything went super well. Everything is torqued to spec, especially front and rear calipers. They are different specs. Wheels are back on, torqued to spec as well. Last thing to do is to bed the brakes, especially because they're performance track pads and rotors. You want to make sure you bed them correctly. So we'll take care of that. We'll go around, drive around, bed the brakes properly, and then that's it. Off to the track. And of course, make sure you're liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. We got plenty more videos to come. Production's back in the house. Let's do this.
Yeah, buddy.